So yesterday we here in Israel were hit by about 200 rockets from Iran. Uh, I can tell you that I definitely heard the sirens and I heard explosions in the air and such. Nice times, right? Everybody is crowding in the shelter, the entire family. Uh, anyway, it was not a pleasant experience, but it wasn't terrible because we're used to it, sadly enough. Um, and because we know that we have the Iron Dome that mostly stops these missiles before they can actually land. Very, very important. Life saving, really. I have here an article from an Israeli news site called Ma'ariv about the Iranian, you could say, some sort of political spokesperson, I guess. And he basically says in the coming days, we will prove that our goal is to destroy Israel. That's lovely. That's from yesterday. That's basically just another declaration that they want to, erase us off the map. It's not for them about Gaza, about how we treat Palestinians, about the death toll or children or anything of the sort. For them, it's just, we want to remove Israel off the map and end all the Jews, which is exactly the same thing that Hamas keeps saying. And I don't think Hezbollah is much different either, which kind of makes it very difficult for anyone to reach any sort of compromise with them because, again, they just say they want us gone. He basically says Khomeini clearly called for the destruction of the Israeli regime. The Islamic civilization must remove the Zionist entity. Now, that's sort of my interpretation of what he's saying here into English. This is a right-wing religious more news website, and they are calling for regime change in Iran. I honestly don't feel as though this is something that the greater Israeli public has much of an appetite for, and I haven't seen calls for it in the more centrist, let alone the left-wing news sites, but there are some calls for regime change in Iran. Personally, I don't think there's international backing for anything of the sort. I might be wrong. We'll have to wait and see. I will say that before that, they're saying here that there will absolutely be a retaliatory strike from Israel on Iran after the 200 rockets from yesterday. And it will probably focus on oil sites or nuclear sites, or perhaps trying to end some of the military higher-ups, which has been Israel's way of doing things with Hezbollah and Hamas as well. To great success in both of these organizations. So the way that people that I have spoken to and what I've read on the internet, people in Israel really feel as though what we absolutely must have as a minimum is the return of the hostages, first and foremost. You have no idea of the solidarity here in Israel. We have traded in the past hundreds of terrorists for the return of a single Israeli soldier, because we absolutely do not leave anyone behind. It's sort of everybody's one big family in these matters, and it might seem counterintuitive, counterproductive, whatever you call it. The Israeli public absolutely will not accept any end to the conflict that does not include the return of the hostages. It's just bare minimum, will not be tolerated at all. Like, if the government were ever to agree to something of the sort, they will be kicked out of the government. In my opinion, they will not be able to maintain their seats. Any sort of international pressure to give up on this will, in my opinion, end in utter failure. Absolute must, which so far there has been zero acceptance of this condition from Hamas. They just, I guess they want concessions from Israel in return, as opposed to the Israeli demand of returning the hostages as a condition for ending hostilities. I can tell you that the Israeli public that I have seen, spoken to, read, won't even consider it. Like, the hostilities will continue until we get the hostages back, and that's that. In addition, people also want conditions that will ensure, at least in the short and medium term, there will be no more fighting, aka no more attacks. People feel as though if we just end things here and there will be no more concessions from the other side, then we'll just get attacked again in a number of months at most. And people don't want that. People want at least years. We know that there will be another attack. We will be attacked again because, again, they just want to remove us off the map and end us all. They say it explicitly, it's not a secret. We know that there will be more fighting, we will be attacked again. But at the very least, we want some semblance of peace for a period of time. A year, 2 years, as much as we can get. And for that, there have to be concessions, there have to be some retreat from the enemy forces, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and so forth. So these are really the two things that everyone I spoke to, everyone I know, are absolutely see as the bottom line. We must not give up. I'm so far not seeing any articles about any acceptance of these terms from the other side. So, at least for now, in my opinion, hostilities will continue. And I'm also predicting a retaliation from Iran to Israel's retaliation to Iran's missile attack. Unless, of course, they are very measured in their response, which I don't think they will be. At least the tone in the Israeli newspapers is not hinting towards that direction. It's hinting towards it being a very performative, like, big deal. This next strike on Iran. They are saying that the Israeli government is sort of trying to sync with the American government, trying to talk with Joe Biden, or at least whoever's awake there, and sort of reach an agreement on what to do and how to do it, how much to hit back, etc. Which, I can definitely see the merit of being in tune with our Western allies that we depend on for aid in times such as these. The way that the people frame this here in Israel in the news is basically that Iran and the other terrorist they call Iran a terrorist regime, and Hezbollah and Hamas terrorist organizations, which, at least for Hezbollah and Hamas, the Western governments agree that they are terrorists, aka they target civilians for political, in their case, religious purposes. And really, the way it's framed here in Israel is basically these Islamic entities are waging a holy war against anyone who's not one of them, specifically against the West. And essentially, Israel's just the first in line, They're not exclusively after us, they're after anyone they deem a religious enemy, and that includes everyone in Europe and the United States. That's the interpretation here in Israel. We're basically the bulwark stopping these religious fanatics from moving further, which is sort of the justification for the aid that we receive, at least in the eyes of the Israeli media. I definitely see the merit of it. If you listen to what the leaders of these groups like Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. say, they're definitely anti-Western. They follow calls for ending Israel with calls for ending America. And you can also see that Christians in the Middle East have been largely removed. I believe even Barack Obama admitted so in a declaration after your Senate in America, or was it the House of Representatives? Well, regardless, they made a declaration about mass ending of Christians in the Middle East. And even Obama, who in my opinion was not very pro-Christian, even he admitted that this was taking place. So I can also say that it extends beyond just Jews and Christians for them. There are many articles that, if you go back, even from CNN and MSNBC and like left-wing outlets, about religious minorities other than Jews and Christians being persecuted. and ended in the Middle East by, the more fanatical Islamic groups. So the idea that they are waging a holy war against non-believers, I think it has quite a bit of merit. If Israel were to fall, would this movement target Europe next? In my opinion, very likely. Of course, your mileage might vary, you might have a different interpretation. In the end, I do not think that this conflict is looking to be resolved anytime soon, unfortunately. I definitely don't need the added stress in my life, but I can recognize that there is no move from Israel that is going to end the conflict right now. In my opinion, not retaliating will just invite more attacks. And we are just facing enemies who are hell-bent on destroying us, and pretty much the only way to get them to back off is to do a show of force that will hurt them enough that they back off temporarily. And then they decide to, retreat and regroup. That's been pretty much the way it is for us here in Israel, as far as back as I remember, really. Will an attack on oil refineries or fields in Iran get them to back off? Maybe. As far as I understand, they are economically very dependent on oil exports. It should, however, disrupt the energy market globally, at least to an extent if that happens. I've seen people in the more economic newspapers talking about that already, which is definitely something that nobody needs or will appreciate right now. But I'm not sure what else a government can actually do. I mean, they won't target civilians, they won't target cities. They can try and target the Iranian military, but I'm not sure how that resolves the conflict anytime soon, because something like that would, unless it's exceedingly large in scale, probably with the help of the United States directly, I don't see how that gets them to back off. It does enough damage that they decided they're better off retreating and regrouping. Which is probably why the target, at least for now, according to the rumors in the news, seems to be the oil of Iran, the oil fields, oil refineries, and so on. Possibly, again, nuclear sites might also be targeted because people here are very afraid of Iran getting a nuclear bomb, because the regime keeps saying, like, from the mouth of every high official, that they want to end us. I guess the perception is, yeah, nobody has used a nuclear bomb so far, but is there really any assurance that religious fanatics over there want to do it? Like, if the leadership just decides one day to hole up in a nuclear bunker and, go for it. It doesn't appear likely, but it doesn't appear impossible either. So people here are quite determined to prevent them getting such a weapon. Anyway, that's enough for me. I'd love to hear from you if you have any news or comments on this issue. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.